Welcome back to ZE Coins. Today the 1978 Washington quarter is one of those coins that seems ordinary at first glance, yet it carries an incredible story in American coinage. When people look at their pocket change, most never stop to think about the history behind each coin, but the Washington quarter has been around since 1932, first created to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the very first president of the United States. By 1978, the coin had already been in production for 46 years, still showing the same familiar portrait of Washington on the front and the proud heraldic eagle on the back. The 1978 quarter was struck at three major mints in the United States. The Philadelphia Mint struck coins without any mint mark, the Denver Mint struck coins with a small letter D, and the San Francisco Mint struck special proof coins with an S mint mark. Each of these tells a different story about how and where the coin was made. At that time, the quarter was still produced from a copper-nickel clad composition, meaning the coin was made with an inner core of copper and an outer layer of copper-nickel. This was the standard metal composition used ever since 1965, when the country moved away from silver coinage. In terms of mintage, the numbers were very high. Over 300 million were struck in Philadelphia, more than 344 million were struck in Denver, and more than 3 million proofs were produced in San Francisco. Because of these high numbers, the average 1978 quarter found in circulation is not rare. Most are only worth their face value of 25 cents when worn from circulation. However, this is not the end of the story. Collectors are always searching for coins in the best possible condition, and this is where the real value can be found. A standard circulated quarter might only be worth a quarter, but an uncirculated mint state example with no wear, sharp details, and original luster can bring in more. Mint state coins graded in the mid-60s by professional grading services often sell for a few dollars, while those in higher grades, especially mint state 67 or above, can sell for much more. The Denver Mint struck quarters are known to sometimes have weaker strikes, so a sharp, well-struck Denver coin in mint state 67 can command a significant premium. Proof coins from San Francisco are another collectible area. The standard proof coins are generally affordable, but deep cameo examples, meaning coins with sharp frosted designs that contrast with deeply mirrored fields, are much more desirable. A proof deep cameo in pristine condition can be worth several tens of dollars, sometimes even more depending on the market. There are also error coins that collectors look out for. Striking errors, off-center strikes, double dies, or coins struck on the wrong planchet can be extremely valuable. For example, a 1978 quarter accidentally struck on a 5-cent planchet or on a foreign coin blank could bring hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the rarity and demand. Now, let's talk about the record prices. While most 1978 quarters will never leave you rich, there are a handful of examples that have sold for eye-popping amounts. In top-graded condition, some 1978 Philadelphia and Denver quarters in mint state 67 have sold for more than $1,000 at auction. Proof coins with deep cameo surfaces have also sold for several $100s when certified at the very highest levels. In today's coin market, the value of a 1978 quarter really comes down to three things. First is condition. If it is worn from circulation, it is generally only worth face value. If it is a pristine uncirculated example or a proof coin, then the value increases. Second is rarity of the grade. Even though hundreds of millions were made, very few survive in top condition without scratches, bag marks, or dull luster. Third is the demand from collectors. When many collectors compete for the same high-grade example, prices climb sharply. So what does this mean for you if you have a 1978 quarter? Check the condition carefully. Look for sharp details in Washington's hair, bright luster on the fields, and minimal scratches. Flip the coin over and study the eagle on the reverse. If you think it may be uncirculated or a proof, it might be worth submitting to a professional grading service. Always keep an eye out for mint marks, as the Denver D and San Francisco S coins can sometimes be more desirable. And remember, error coins can be worth a fortune, so never overlook something unusual. In the big picture of coin collecting, the 1978 Washington quarter is not just spare change. It is part of a long-running series that connects everyday Americans to their history and heritage. From face value circulation coins to high-grade rarities that have sold for over $1,000, this coin is a perfect example of how history, art, and value come together in one small piece of metal. The 1982 P. Washington $quarter coin is one of the most fascinating pieces in modern United States coinage history. At first glance, it may appear to be just another ordinary quarter that passed through the hands of millions of Americans during the early 1980s, but the truth is far more interesting. Collectors around the world seek out certain examples of this coin, and in the right condition or with the right striking errors, the value can climb into big money territory. To understand why the 1982 P. Washington quarter has become so desirable, we need to step back into the year it was struck. The coin features the familiar design of George Washington on the obverse, created by sculptor John Flanagan, with the reverse displaying the iconic eagle with spread wings clutching arrows and olive branches. But what makes the 1982 issue unusual is that it was minted during a time of change and economic challenge in the United States. The Philadelphia Mint struck more than 500 million Washington quarters in 1982. Normally, when a coin has such a massive mintage, one would assume it could never be rare or valuable. But 1982 is remembered by collectors as a no-mint set year. The U.S. Mint did not produce official uncirculated mint sets that year. That meant that the only way to acquire high-quality uncirculated examples was to find them directly from bank rolls or circulation, which was difficult. Because of this, pristine, sharply struck 1982 P quarters are far scarcer than the raw mintage numbers suggest. Another key factor that adds to the desirability of this coin is its condition rarity. Circulated examples are common and usually worth only face value. However, gem-quality pieces graded mint state 65 or higher by major grading companies can bring serious premiums. In fact, quarters graded MS-67 with exceptional luster and strike can sell for hundreds, sometimes even over $1,000 at major auctions. Collectors are also especially drawn to certain error coins from 1982. During this time, the mint sometimes had quality control issues, and several dramatic mistakes slipped through. Some coins are known to have off-center strikes, double dies, or missing details caused by weak strikes. A famous variety includes the transitional or wrong planchet error, where a quarter was mistakenly struck on a copper cent or other planchet. Such dramatic errors are extremely rare and can be worth thousands of dollars depending on condition and demand. When discussing market value today, it is important to separate average circulated coins from high-end examples. An ordinary 1982 P. Washington quarter taken from pocket change will almost always be worth just 25 cents. But if you happen to discover a high-grade piece, the story changes completely. For instance, an MS-66 example might bring between $50 and $100 on the current market. At the MS-67 level, values can push into the high hundreds, with auction records sometimes exceeding $1,000. Exceptional error coins or rare die varieties have been known to sell for several $1,000s, particularly when two or more collectors compete for ownership. Another point worth mentioning is the importance of coin grading and authentication. For anyone who thinks they might have a valuable 1982 P quarter, sending the coin to a professional grading service such as PCGS or NGC is a smart choice. These companies not only assign a numerical grade to the coin but also certify its authenticity, which adds credibility and market value when selling. Today's coin market is strong, and interest in Washington quarters continues to grow. Collectors who once overlooked these modern issues are beginning to realize that certain dates, like the 1982 P, hold significant historical and investment appeal. With so few high-grade survivors and the unique circumstances of its release year, this coin stands as a reminder that even common-looking modern coins can turn out to be treasures. In conclusion, the 1982 P Washington $quarter is far more than just loose change. While most pieces will remain worth only their face value, pristine high-grade examples and dramatic error coins can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. It is a coin that perfectly illustrates how history, mintage numbers, condition rarity, and collector demand all come together to create value. If you ever come across an old roll of quarters from the early 1980s or find one in your collection, take a closer look. You might just be holding a small piece of big money history in the palm of your hand. We are diving into one of the most collected and fascinating modern coins in American history, the 1989 P. Washington $quarter coin. This is a coin that on the surface looks like just another common piece of change you might find in your pocket, but for collectors and history enthusiasts it has a story that is worth knowing, and in some cases it can be worth a surprising amount of money. The 1989 quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is why you will see the small P mint mark on the front side just next to George Washington's hair ribbon. More than 896 million of these coins were produced that year, which means at first glance it seems like a very common coin, one that should only be worth 25 cents, but in the world of coin collecting, rarity is not the only factor. Condition and striking quality can completely change the value. The Washington quarter design itself dates back to 1932, when it was introduced to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Sculptor John Flanagan created the design that would remain on the coin for decades, showing the profile of Washington on the front and the iconic heraldic eagle on the reverse for most of the 20th century. By the time 1989 came along, this design was already a familiar and trusted part of American coinage. Now let's talk about value and circulated condition, meaning the type of coin you might pull straight out of pocket change. The 1989 P. Washington quarter is worth only its face value, 25 cents, even though it is more than 30 years old. That is because there were so many struck and most of them are still out there in circulation. But where things get interesting is when you start looking at uncirculated examples, especially those that were preserved in pristine condition right from the mint. Collectors often grade coins using a scale that runs from 1 to 70, known as the Sheldon scale. An average coin you find in circulation might grade anywhere from fine to very fine, but the coins that command big money are those graded mint state 65, 67 and even higher. For example, a 1989 P quarter in mint state 65 could bring around $10 to $15 at auction. In mint state 67 the price can jump to $50 or more. The real treasures, however, are the top population coins, the very best examples certified by grading companies like PCGS or NGC. In mint state 68 these are extremely difficult to find because striking quality at the Philadelphia Mint in the late 1980s was not always the sharpest. When one of these top-grade coins shows up at auction, collectors can go crazy bidding them up. One record price for a 1989 P. Washington quarter in MS68 reached over $1,000, which is amazing considering this is a coin you could otherwise mistake for spare change. Another important factor to mention is error coins. Sometimes mistakes happen at the mint and those errors can make a common coin suddenly rare and valuable. For the 1989 P quarter there are a few known varieties, including off-center strikes, double dies and coins struck on the wrong planchet. These types of errors can range from $100 all the way into the thousands depending on the severity of the mistake and the overall condition of the coin. So if you ever come across a 1989 quarter that looks odd, make sure to have it examined before spending it in the current market. As of today, collectors continue to search for these coins, especially high-grade examples, and errors. Online auction sites and coin shows often list them and the demand is strong, especially among Washington quarter enthusiasts. The general value for circulated pieces remains face value. Uncirculated examples in MS65 to MS67 range from $10 up to $50, while MS68 coins with top certification have brought as much as $1,000 or more. Errors, of course, can skyrocket even higher depending on rarity. So what is the takeaway? The 1989 P. Washington quarter is a coin that teaches us not to judge by appearances. While millions of these are still circulating and most are only worth a quarter, the few that survive in flawless condition or with mint errors can be worth serious money. It reminds us to always check our change carefully and to understand that history and condition play a huge role in numismatics. If you are building a collection, keep an eye out for well-preserved examples of this coin, and if you want to take it further, consider submitting your best find to a professional grading service who can authenticate and certify the grade, which will help you realize its full market value. The 1993 D. Washington quarter is one of those coins that most people have probably seen in pocket change without giving it a second thought. But when we dig deeper into its history, its minting, and especially the condition and grading of surviving examples, we discover that some of these quarters are worth much more than just 25 cents. Today we are going to explore the full story behind the 1993 D. Washington $quarter coin. We will look at how it was made, how many were struck, what makes certain examples so valuable, and what collectors are paying for them in today's coin market. The Washington quarter design had already been in circulation for decades by 1993. It was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By the early 1990s the coin had gone through some small adjustments in minting style but still featured the familiar profile of George Washington on the front with the word Liberty above, the national motto "In God We Trust" to the side, and the date at the bottom. The reverse still showed the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings clutching arrows and olive branches. Now let us focus on the Denver Mint issue. The D mint mark, located on the right side of Washington's ponytail, indicates it was struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado. In 1993 the Denver Mint produced over 650 million quarters. That huge number means that most 1993 D quarters are very common in circulated condition. You can often still find them in everyday change. In worn condition, they are generally only worth their face value of 25 cents, but the story changes completely when we begin to talk about high-grade examples. Coins that were carefully preserved right after minting, coins that never entered circulation, and coins that are certified by grading services in top mint state condition can bring surprisingly strong prices. Collectors look for sharp details, brilliant luster, and clean fields free of heavy scratches or marks. For example, a 1993 D Washington quarter graded mint state 67 or higher can sell for significant amounts. While mint state 65 examples might bring only a few dollars, once you cross into mint state 67 and 68 territory, values can jump into the hundreds. In fact, a top population coin in mint state 68 has been known to sell for over $1,000 at auction. That is an enormous increase from just a simple 25-cent piece. The reason these high-grade coins are so valuable is rarity of condition. With hundreds of millions struck, it might seem like they are everywhere, but most coins suffered bag marks, nicks, or wear as they traveled through the banking and circulation system. Finding one that is nearly flawless is extremely difficult, and collectors are willing to pay a premium to own the very best. There are also some error coins from 1993 that can carry high value. These are mistakes that happened during the minting process. Examples include off-center strikes, double dies, and coins struck on the wrong planchet. Depending on the type of error and the eye appeal, these coins can be worth from $50 up into the hundreds or even more. Collectors love dramatic minting errors because they are truly unique pieces of history. So if you have a 1993 D quarter in your possession, the first step is to look at its condition. If it is well worn, it is probably just face value. If it has full luster and sharp details, it might be worth sending into a grading service for certification. And if you notice something unusual about the design, such as doubling in the lettering or a major striking mistake, you may have a rare variety or error coin worth serious money. Now let's talk about today's coin market. As of right now, the demand for high-grade modern quarters is strong among registry set collectors. These collectors compete to build the best possible sets, which drives up the price of top-graded coins. In lower grades, values remain modest, but that also makes it affordable for new collectors to start building sets of Washington quarters from the 1990s. Summarize, the 1993 D Washington quarter is common in circulation, but in superb mint state condition or with a major error it can be worth hundreds or even over $1,000. Its place in numismatic history is secure as part of the long-running Washington Quarter series, and it continues to attract interest both from casual collectors and from serious specialists. The 1995 D Washington Quarter dollar may look like just another pocket change coin, but for collectors it carries both fascinating history and potential hidden value. Struck at the Denver Mint, the 1995 D quarter is part of the long-running Washington Quarter series, first introduced back in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. This series ran for decades before the famous state quarters program began in 1999, so the 1995 D is one of the last traditional eagle reverse Washington quarters ever made. In 1995 alone, the Denver Mint produced more than 1.1 billion quarters. Because of that enormous mintage, most examples found today are considered common. Circulated coins with heavy wear usually hold only their face value of 25 cents. However, like all coins, quality, condition, and unique errors can transform an ordinary quarter into a highly sought-after collectible. Collectors often look for coins that have been preserved in mint state condition. A standard 1995 D quarter in uncirculated grades like MS-63 or MS-64 may only be worth $1 to $3. That might not sound like much, but when you climb higher into gem mint grades the value begins to rise. Coins graded MS-65 can reach around $10 to $15. An MS-66 could sell for $25 to $40. When you push into the highest levels, such as MS-67, values can jump from $100 to over $200. The true prize, however, is the rare MS-68 grade. In that condition, a 1995 D Washington quarter has sold for well over $1,000 at auction. Because so many coins were struck, finding one with perfect luster, strong strike, and flawless surfaces is extremely difficult. That is why serious collectors are willing to pay so much for the best examples. Beyond condition, errors, and varieties play a huge role in coin values. Collectors prize double die obverse, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and coins struck on the wrong planchet. While not every error has been discovered for the 1995 D, it is always worth examining coins closely. Even a minor error can transform a simple quarter into a piece worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. When we consider the market today, it is important to recognize that coin collecting has grown steadily in popularity. Online auction platforms and grading services such as PCGS and NGC make it easy to buy, sell, and certify coins. As a result, demand for top-quality Washington quarters has remained strong. Even though most 1995 D quarters are common, the highest graded examples and dramatic mint errors continue to bring in big money. For anyone curious about checking their own pocket change, the key steps are simple. First, look at the coin carefully under good lighting. If it shows little or no wear and still has bright luster, it might be worth setting aside. Second, consider sending high-grade examples to a professional grading service for certification. Finally, keep in mind that rare coins often appear when least expected. A simple quarter found in circulation today might one day prove to be a hidden treasure. So while the majority of 1995 D Washington quarters will only ever be worth face value, the exceptional ones tell a different story. From a few dollars for average mint state examples, to hundreds for high-grade gems, and even over $1,000 for the finest known pieces, this coin proves that history and value can hide in plain sight. The 1997 P Washington quarter dollar may look like just another coin in your pocket change, but many collectors know that this small piece of history can actually be worth far more than its face value. In today's video we will explore the story behind the 1997 P Washington quarter, why it is important in American coinage, which rare varieties and errors exist, and how much this coin can sell for in today's coin market. Stay tuned until the end because you may discover that the coin sitting in your old jar at home could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. First, let's take a step back and look at the background. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. From that time onward the coin became one of the most widely used denominations in the United States. By the year 1997, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for 65 years. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters that year with the P mint mark placed on the obverse side of the coin right next to Washington's ponytail. Now what makes the 1997 P quarter special is not just its place in history but the fact that certain coins from this mintage have rare qualities, errors, or unusually high grades that make collectors pay serious money. The standard coin was made of copper and nickel with a weight of 5.67 grams. Most of them are only worth their face value of 25 cents when found in circulation. However, not all coins are created equal. Condition is the first factor that drives value. Circulated examples with heavy wear will almost always be worth a quarter. But if you happen to have a 1997 P Washington quarter in mint state condition with no scratches, no wear, and full luster, the value climbs sharply. Coins graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC at levels MS-66, MS-67, or even MS-68 can sell for large premiums. At MS-66 you might see values around $30 to $50. At MS-67 the price can rise to hundreds of dollars. The absolute top population coins at MS-68 are so scarce that they can reach auction prices well over $1,000. Errors are another key reason why some 1997 P quarters are worth big money. Collectors hunt for mistakes made at the mint such as double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die breaks. For example, if the coin was struck slightly off-center so that the rim appears misaligned, collectors might pay 10, 20, or even more depending on the severity. A dramatic off-center strike could bring in hundreds. A double die obverse where the lettering or the date shows noticeable doubling is especially valuable. These error coins are not common, but when they show up they can command strong demand in the marketplace. Another important aspect to mention is proof coins. In 1997 the San Francisco Mint produced special proof quarters primarily for collectors. These are mirror-like coins made with polished dies. If you own a 1997 proof quarter with the S Mint mark, it can carry values higher than normal circulation strikes. Deep cameo proofs in perfect grade PR70 can sell for more than $100. While that may not sound like a fortune, it is still far more than 25 cents. When looking at the overall coin market today, the 1997 P Washington quarter is considered common in lower grades but rare in the highest mint state levels and with unique errors. For average circulated pieces the value is 25 cents. For high-grade uncirculated coins certified MS66 or above, the value jumps from $50 up to several $100s. The absolute finest known examples or dramatic error varieties can reach into the thousands of dollars. The lesson here is simple. Always check your change carefully and never overlook what seems like an ordinary coin. The 1997 P Washington quarter is a perfect example of how something small can hold hidden value. With millions of collectors across the United States and around the world, demand for these rare coins is strong, and the market continues to reward quality and scarcity. So next time you come across a 1997 quarter, look closely at the date, the mint mark, the details, and the overall condition. That coin in your pocket could be worth more than lunch money. In fact, it could be worth a collector's bid of hundreds or even thousands of dollars. We are diving into one of the most fascinating coins in modern United States history, the 2004 D Wisconsin State Quarter Dollar. This is not just any ordinary pocket change. This quarter can be worth a lot of money if you know what to look for, and by the end of this video you will understand its history, the rare varieties, and exactly how much collectors are paying in today's market. Let's begin with the background. The Wisconsin State Quarter was released in 2004 as part of the United States Mint's 50 State Quarters program. This program began in 1999 and ran until 2008, honoring every state in the Union with its own unique design. For Wisconsin, the quarter shows a cow, a wheel of cheese, and an ear of corn, celebrating the state's proud farming and dairy traditions. Now here is where things get interesting. At the Denver Mint in 2004, a small number of Wisconsin quarters were struck with unusual die varieties. Specifically on the ear of corn, there are two rare extra leaf varieties. These are known as the extra leaf high and the extra leaf low. In the extra leaf high version you will see an additional leaf curling high up on the left side of the corn husk. In the extra leaf low version the extra leaf points downward closer to the cheese. These extra leaves were not part of the original design, and they appeared due to die gouges or alterations made during the minting process. Most Wisconsin quarters have no extra leaf and are only worth face value, but if you happen to find one of these special extra leaf varieties, you are holding something extremely valuable. Even in circulated condition, these coins can be worth hundreds of dollars. Collectors will pay big money for well-preserved examples. Let's talk about actual values. In average circulated grades, the extra leaf low variety generally sells between $150 and $200. The extra leaf high variety tends to bring even more, often selling for $200 to $300, but the big money is in higher grades. If you send one of these coins to be professionally graded and it comes back in mint state condition, values can skyrocket. For example, an extra leaf high in mint state 65 has been known to sell for over $1,000, and some of the very finest examples have crossed $2,000 at auction. The regular Wisconsin quarters without the extra leaf are still collectible, especially in pristine uncirculated rolls or graded mint state 68 or higher, but the true stars are the varieties. The discovery of the extra leaf quarters caused a media frenzy back in 2005 when people all across America started checking their change. This was one of the first modern coin errors that made national headlines, bringing everyday people into coin collecting. Now you might be wondering how many of these varieties exist. Estimates suggest that tens of thousands of extra leaf quarters were released, but compared to the nearly 500 million Wisconsin quarters struck at the Denver Mint, That is just a tiny fraction. This rarity combined with strong collector demand explains why prices remain so high nearly 2 decades after their discovery. So how do you find one? The key is to check every 2004 D Wisconsin quarter you come across. Remember, these coins must have the Denver Mint mark, which is a small D on the front of the coin just below the motto "In God We Trust." Then flip the coin over and carefully study the left side of the corn husk. If you see an extra leaf either high or low, congratulations, you have found a treasure. In the current coin market, values continue to be strong. As of today, circulated extra leaf high or low quarters are still selling between $150 and $300. Uncirculated examples graded by PCGS or NGC often bring anywhere from $500 to over $1,000, and the finest known specimens are worth several $1,000s to serious collectors. The story of the 2004 D Wisconsin quarter is a perfect example of why coin collecting is so exciting. A simple quarter worth only 25 cents can actually be a small fortune if it contains a rare variety. These coins remind us that history and value are often hiding in plain sight in the change we use every day. So the next time you get quarters back from the bank or from a store, take a close look. You never know when you might find one of these legendary 2004 D Wisconsin extra leaf quarters and turn just 25 cents into hundreds or even thousands of dollars.